Look at all those gems. So forgotten from the past. What say you and I find some and unlock the nervous cortexes in your brain and make them explode? Well, as the wonderful idiot that I am, I completely forgot about Halloween, so that is coming soon. But I figured I might as well just do another little thing, just as a little special thing, you know? Look over nostalgia gone by. Stuff that I haven't looked over for the show, but I feel like they still need to be worth talking about anyway. So let me break down a few rules before we dig into those gems. First off, this is strictly for the British side of things. Anything cartoon or live action related, it has to be from its native united land in its kingdom. So, sorry, Batman. Bugger off, man. And also, it wouldn't make sense if I included some of the shows I've already done for the Preschool Guys show to include it into this list too. So, stuff like Henry's Cat, Rhubarb and Custard, The Family Nest, Star Hill Ponies, and of course, the big star biller himself. All those shows and more? Forget them! This is for the truly forgotten. And I'm gonna talk about them today. I got no punchline for that. We got a bunch of these gems to dig down into, so let's just dig right into the first one. This first one is not necessarily forgotten, but if you grew up around my time, we kids remember this cartoon for being not only really artsy and really memorable, it was really mature for what it was, despite the way it looked. The Animals of Farthing Wood. The story, if I believe, is that a group of animals are finding a new home because their original one is being overdosed by man and such, so that's their adventures trying to find a safe haven for all of them to live in. Now, if you haven't seen this show, you're probably thinking, oh, it sounds so cutesy, oh, it's going to do that. But that's where you would be wrong. It was very, very mature for what it did. I mean, sure, it had its kiddie moments and even one or two characters that didn't stomach well, even as an adult, I kind of grown at. But there's a lot of mature talk in this program. Like, there's even some scenes where death is involved with main characters. It's like, whoa, these people aren't shutting down any volumes of what they want to program for the little kids, are they? I mean, the art style is real good, but when you have to detail it with, say, like a character being impaled by thorns, you're getting away with a lot in the 90s, aren't you? But watching the first series again as a whole recently, there were some things I did notice that don't make it the immediate classic that everyone might make it out to be. Some of the animation might have errors in there, and like I said, some characters don't stomach well. Also, there are some characters' themes with the music and such that might get distracting. I mean, like, whenever they're walking, a random instrument might be coming up like a trumpet or a flute, or even the theme from X-Files. I'm not even joking. That was a thing that was in that show. But despite the faults that it might have then and maybe even now, I think the Animals of Farthing Wood still holds up to this day. Even watching just Series 1, I think it's still a good watch, and if you can like stomach the reality of what this world is bringing up to its intended audience, then it's all pretty well good. At least it's not stomaching any pop culture references. It's sticking to its story and with its characters, and it does a fine job of that. And as for Series 2 and 3, I hear Series 2 is the best among the fans because that goes deeper into character development and such what have you, even emotional scenes. Series 3, the less we speak about that, the better. Bimble's Bucket! Anyone remember that one? The story where a young lad, this is a world set with mostly animals, but we find a young lad finding a bucket which inhabits like a little acorn person that can grant him any wish that comes out of the bucket. Anyone remember that? It was from the same person that made Dream Master or something, correct me if I'm wrong. Although, the only thing that I do remember from that show is the villains. And they're not even good villains, not even dastardly even, but the way that they're being comical and the way that the show seems to focus more on them than the actual main characters, they did entertain me as a kid, and I can still remember the designs for them even to this day. Like, why is it that the henchmen were styled as punk artists that you would get from a rock festival or something? I don't know. Either way, thinking about it, it was harmless in a sense, and I do remember as a kid it did get something out of me, and I hope it did something for a lot of you out there too. If you can remember it, that is. Ha! But here's a big one. Anyone remember Blobs? No? Neither do I for the most part, but there was that theme tune that was sung by John Horrocks. You know, that lady who played the assistant in The Witches. Anyone remember that movie? Ah, that's another time. Yeah, the Blobs only ran for one series, didn't it? Even though it was very creative of having these characters being stylized as a kid's painting and not having like outlines for the most part. Nothing else to remember really. I remember this character named Fizzy Orange, something like that. I remember watching an episode that centered around him. And there's not many videos out there that features much else. But the only thing I do remember is, did the show create like short little songs for each character? Like I remember Fizzy got one, and from the clip I saw it for research, another character got one too, so I'm guessing that was a thing that would went on in the show. Each character would get their own little song before the story actually began. I don't know. Think for yourselves, kids. I'm giving you homework. The next one is Budgie the Helicopter, and as a kid there's something about it that drew me into it, sort of like Thomas the Tank Engine. Maybe it was because these aircraft have faces that no one seems to question really. But either way, it was innocent enough in what it did for 2D animation. At least for the planes themselves and maybe the backgrounds, they were decent enough. It's the human character design that are like, yeah, those don't look like humans. They're not bad like Animals of Farming would, but you call those humans, really? And interesting enough, looking up some research on Budgie the Little Helicopter, this was done by the Duchess of York. I mean, she didn't write any of the episodes, if I remember correctly, or anything like that, but it was based on her idea to educate kids on the field of aircraft, I guess. I guess that was something that she liked, so that's interesting and well-meaning on her part. Bit random if you ask me, but there you go. Yeah, it's interesting how I'm not really going to great depth about these shows, really, but in my defense for this episode, I'm just speaking out little sparks in your memory, and even mine too, just to be like, hey, I remember that, and that way you can do what you will while you're watching this video, or after you're done watching it, you can go about, search any of these shows that I mentioned here, or even ones that make you think in a moment. There you go, you can look those up too. This is about reliving memories, just a little while, kids. I like to think I'm a good person today. Well, what do we have here? This seems like we have a Count Duckula-esque show on my next list. Does anyone remember Dr. Zickbag's Transylvania Pet Shop? If you remember the theme song for that show, then I will gladly give you a cookie, because to me it still kind of holds up. Oh, and something I didn't know as a kid, but I obviously know now. It is French. Very, very, very French. And I remember watching the show religiously as a kid. If ever an episode came up, I'd be like, right, I'm sitting down and watching this because it entertained me for a reason. Maybe it was the fact that it kind of reminded me of Count Dracula, but like I said, it was a different art style, and the way it portrayed itself, it wasn't intentionally creepy. Like, it was creative, but not scary. But for what it was, I liked it as a kid, and if I ever find an actual English episode someday, I'll gladly sit down and try to relive those memories too. Hey kids, do you want to watch Captain Planet with soccer? Then you've got the Hurricanes! Da 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 da. So let me get this straight. I thought it was mostly made for England. Like, I know HTV was kind of sponsoring it, but apparently it's Canadian. It's got some of the voice actors from Sailor Moon, and like I said, it's kind of like Captain Planet with soccer. And with your characters, you don't need personalities, you've got nationalities. So one of them is clearly Hispanic, the other is like German twins, and the other, the leader of the team is American, but he sounds like Scott McNeil, who's clearly Canadian. And then you have like a 16-year-old girl who owns the actual soccer team. So anyone remember that? The Hurricanes! Now this next one, if you grew up in the 90s and you're watching CITV every other week, this will be a show that might have come up at some point, because it's been very different as the years went on. Mike and Angelo. Now I remember it ran on very, very long when I was a kid. In fact, I think it ran for like 10, if not 11 seasons or series, if you will. Even though it changed its scenarios, its characters throughout the years. The one thing that still remained for the most part is the character Angelo. Now, from the few episodes that I've seen for research, it seems to me that this character is just innocent, really. In fact, you could think of him as like a child-friendly version of Richie Rich from Bottom, maybe. Just something about him. He has this energy, but for here, it totally works. It totally works. Now, there is an aunt that's in the show too, from the few episodes I've seen, and she's really hammering up this role. Like, I'm surprised she's still alive with the way she overacts and screams her roles, because this was a very campy, very silly little show, because it's built like a sitcom, but it has instances of science fiction kind of stuff, like even referencing Doctor Who, because the main character, who's from another planet, comes in from a wardrobe that is like the TARDIS or something. Don't question it. But one of the episodes I rewatched was surprisingly very mature and very depressing compared to all the fun, over-the-top hoo stuff that's in the other episodes, called The Phantom Zone, where Angelo is trapped in a place where only his spirit exists in the human world, and if he doesn't get back soon, he might be gone forever. And it's taken very seriously, and like, it's very sad when you think about it, like, oh my god, this is supposed to be a kid's show too, a sitcom no less. Like, why is this portrayed for us? But even after rewatching it for this video, Mike and Angelo kind of hold up well. You know what, I can even dare say it does better than that other sitcom-based sitcom that aired on CITV. Something to do with aliens and parents and little kids that get taken up by them, and one of the aliens was replaced by another actress later on in the show. What's the show called again? Oh yeah. Now this next cartoon might surprise some of you of who produced it. Mumfie, the cartoon really, the 90s cartoon, was actually produced by none other than Britt Allcroft, Mrs. Thomas the Tank Engine herself, which is kind of surprising when you think about it, but then not. Like, this is one of the free productions that she ever made for her company, two being Thomas the Tank Engine based, and then there's this one. I remember whenever I watched the show as a kid, it had a very flowing narrative. Like, it might have been episodic, but there was like a plot as a whole where Mumfie needs to search for something. I know like one of the characters was searching for his or her mother too, but for the purposes of just getting to know what I remember, I watched the Christmas special known as, I think it was Mumfie's White Christmas. And with that, you get, unless you watch the show beforehand, you're not going to get, who are these characters, or what's going on right here, why are they being so hastily introduced, but my guess is they were introduced in the show before this Christmas special. And for the Christmas special too, it's just like, it's not really overflowing with Christmas. I mean, there's Santa, there's snow, which is actually more important than actual Father Christmas giving out presents and such. But for the plot itself, it's just innocent, like the characters too, and the way the storyteller just brings these characters to life. It's like, for the most part, it's kind of pleasant. There's never a point where a character's like really loud talking or whatever. It's kind of soft-spoken, more or less. So I give at least credit for that. And for 2D animation too, like, it's pretty impressive for what it could get away with. The one thing I'm questioning is that they have songs in the show, and for this Christmas special too, but they were all sung by a female singer. So with that said, if you're gonna get the storyteller anyway to do the male voices, why can you have this singer to do the female voices too, other than just like the main storyteller trying to do a piglet's voice, but coming off really awkward at times, when you could have just easily got like a female voice artist, even the singer for the songs, to do it instead. Just, I don't know. If there's one nitpick to be had at, it's that. But Mumfie is really innocent. It's its own world and its own stories, and it is what it is, and I have no complaints about it. Next is Penny Crayon. Anyone remember that cartoon? It's from the same people that made Family Nest, and if you even remember this one, Jumbo the Jet Set, or whatever that is. Basically, the story is that you have this girl who has a magic talent for drawing and making that art come to life. And I remember not being as big on me as the Family Nest. I do remember watching a few episodes and got enough out of it to be entertained at least. It's the same art style, the same male voice artist from the Family Nest comes back in this too. But you have like a female artist voicing Miss Penny Crayon, who, if you remember the voice, is actually, well, for me at least, is Jemima Pollock from the Peter Rabbit cartoon series. If she's been in other stuff, then please let me know. But that's all I remember. Her northern streak from. She's like, what, 10 years old, but she sounds like a girl of her 40s, housewife going out for the pint. But that's all innocent enough, really. What's also innocent, in my opinion, was Percy the Park Keeper. I only remember watching one or two of the TV specials that came out based on the books themselves. And then there was like one more TV series of 13 episodes that I think they were just written for the show. If they were based on any books, then you can please let me know. But the real surprising thing is, like, obviously you have like minor TV voice artists doing kids shows for the most part, but then you have this show and you have Percy being voiced by Jim Broadbent. Let that sink in. If they can get someone like that for an innocent little show like that, then you've done something. And also another little fact, obviously looking from the art it's pretty obvious, but if you remember Kipper the dog, then probably this points to you too, because those two shows were by the same animation studio, even the same production company. Look, remember Hit Entertainment? Remember those days when Hit Entertainment, you looked at their logo and like, oh, that's awesome, they're the best company ever. And now you look at them like, you ruined my childhood, you bastard. Here comes another cartoon where the only thing you remember is the theme song, the Ragy Dolls. If anyone actually remembers more than that, then you have my full sympathy. I remember nothing other than the theme tune. I obviously rewatched a few episodes just to be on the safe side, but like, yeah, the stories, they're not really memorable. The characters, even though I kind of remember the designs, I couldn't for the life of me remember their names. Like, I remember one of them was like a big fat sack of blob, and like, I think it was Sad Sack, but even then it was just like, there's not much personality. And why is it that these dolls are kind of like the same design as Rayman? And looking at it now, it's kind of weird. But The cool thing now that I've seen looking up on this, the storyteller slash music man for the cartoon, Neil Eames, I believe it is. He also worked on the songs for the Monty Python TV series and even the films too. So knowing that knowledge, that's cool. Do what you will with that. It's just, that's dedication, my friend. And there was a bunch of stop motion cartoons that Cosgrove Hall Productions did in the 90s after Danger Mouse and Darkula sort of just went out of the road. So out of all the stuff they've done, let me name a few. Noddy, Adventures in Toyland, Okie Doke, Brambley Hedge, and Rocky and the Dodos. Does anyone remember those? Particularly that last one? Please. Stop motion's good, but they were just innocent in what they did with it before they focused on Postman Pat. Oh my god. Now this is a cartoon, immediately thinking back, I did watch as a kid, but I don't remember anything now. Rubbish King of the Jumble. The two things that stick out to me is that the main character, Rubbish, is voiced by Alexei Style, who you may remember for his stand-up and even his contributions to The Young Ones. And the other thing is that, is the humor of the show kind of like a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner-esque thing to it? I don't remember much about it, but again, that's what the comments are for. Let me know so that way more memories can spark out of everyone's ears. Nothing's happened yet, so get on that. This next one is pretty interesting too. Spider for the BBC. Basically, the whole show is done in song, and for the most part it tells the story of this little boy who bonds a relationship with a little spider. From what I remember, it was hesitant at first, but it slowly built its way for them being the bestest of friends. I think only 2 episodes were not based around this story. In fact, I think they were based on nursery rhymes. But for the most part, they were done in song, and it was just this kind of story. Nothing bad happened in it, if I remember correctly, but it was just the adventures of these 2 friends just doing what they want with it. I know Spider was like one of the head mascots for children's BBC for a little while in the 90s. And it was creative for what it did, despite how the animation, it looks cheap and a little sketchy, but I certainly remember that more than Williams Wish Wellingtons and Microscopic Milton. If you remember that, good for you. But with Spider, I remember its setup and how it portrayed itself more clearly than the other 2. Can't we get along? We're on to our last 2 now, and these one might be really, really big to all you British kids out there. Does anyone remember The Story Keepers? It would air on ITV every Sunday morning after like all the main kids stuff was done. And then you have this religious-based cartoon where you have a baker and his wife taking some children, and they set up an underground of Christians where they keep the stories of Jesus Christ alive through their everyday life and sort of teach the kids about the Bible and what Jesus did for his people and such. So, and in respect of that, like, again, it didn't use pop culture references or anything like that. It stuck to its timeline, it stuck to its messages, and despite me not having a religious background, it did its job well. Like, I mean, the animation might look cheap now, but what it's trying to convey with its stories and its spiritual meaning for the children, it does relatively well. I recently, for research purposes, I looked up the Easter special, and within the first 5 minutes of that, this popped up.
I'm that bad boy known as Nero. I'm the Empire's evil hero. Other gods amount to 0. Who would disagree? Though my singing's fair to middling, I won't stop hype diddle diddling. Rome can burn, I'll just keep fiddling. Glory be to me. I'll take the glory. Who disagree? So dictatore, glory be to me.
You heard that right, folks. Tim Curry provides the singing voice for Nero. Mind blown. In fact, there's even still a website still running based on the show with full story synopsis, character bios, just anything that, even after what, 15, 20 years of being made, there are people that still hold dear to this story, this whole world that's been created just to teach the kids about the goodwill of Jesus Christ. And like I said, for what it did, it was harmless. Now this next one might not be forgotten, but it still holds up very well in my heart. In fact, it's one of my favorites out of this whole list that I made. Wolves, Witches, and Giants. This was the cartoon that was made before Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, which you can tell because the art style is kind of more sketchy. But what they could get away with their own interpretations of classic fairy tales and having the voice of Spike Milligan bring them to life, it just all works. If you've seen the show yourself when you were a kid or whatever, you would agree that there was just something about it that was really fun, really innocent. It made you want to watch more episodes, not just for the stories themselves, but for the characters that were incorporated in the show and just this voice bringing them to life. Just much nostalgia coming out from that one show alone that's bringing so many good memories. And to an extent, that's what these other shows on my list too, even if some of them don't hold up as a whole, they did their job as a kid, and just looking back, they bring such good memories. And I hope it will do the same for you, audiences at home, with this episode and such. It may not have a real meaning, but if it unlocks any memories that you have that mean good to you as a kid, then I hope that's done its job. So if you want to share any other shows for kids that you grew up with that you want to share in the comment section, please do, because I've done the same for you, and if you do the same for me, then we're all doing a good deed, right? So if you type in something like, oh, does anyone remember the Treacle people, or Enji Benji, or whatever, then that's cool. I'll be like, wow, you remember that? Or even, wow, that's interesting. Like, we're all here together because we grew up with something that really meant to us as kids, and even if we're not aware of it now as adults, we can still hold the fact that these shows done their job, and it's a shame that they're really forgotten. And the same thing might happen for kids today. Like, there might be a few shows that they're watching right now that no one will remember in 10, 20 years, but they're getting the same out of it as we got like when we were kids. So that's all one in my book. And I feel like I needed this episode to be made because I wanted to make my mark again. None of that plagiarism for American programming or selling out for what you might want to see. I'll gladly take in requests if that may be, but I want to do the shows I want to review and whatever, so, because it's what I love to do. I love to entertain you guys with what I want to do. If that sounds selfish, then I'm sorry, but I just want to be happy again, and I hope you can respect that, guys. But with everything over now, I feel like I have control of my life again, and I feel like this season right here is going to be the most safe and most memorable of all.